The Battle of Ohio. The Battle of Ohio. The Brownies and the Bengals. This is a big game for Dick in Dayton. Guy that calls the show. He's not listening right now. Dick wakes up next hour. I can tell you, he's still sleeping. He'll wake up in like 57 minutes. And then the first thing he does not have a coffee. He calls the show. I promise you, he'll call next hour. But it's a big deal for him. Now, if you didn't watch the game, chances are you did not. It was regional coverage. Cincinnati quarterback Joe Burrow, who got paid, biggest contract in NFL history. On a Thursday night, the story broke. Burrow went out and said, you know what? I would like to serve sloppy joes all over the place, and that's exactly what Joe Burrow did. Sloppy Joe for you, sloppy Joe for you, sloppy Joe for you. One of the worst games in his career, if not the worst, a career low, 82 yards passing for Joe Burrow. Attempted 32 passes. 18 of them were incomplete. In Cleveland, by the time it was done on a rainy Ohio day, Cleveland 24-3 as they win the game. Apparently the weather only affecting the Bengals and not the Browns. But the better story is in the losing locker room. So that is where we will go, and we will begin. The question, was this performance by Joe Burrow just an off performance, an off game, or is there cause for concern with Joe Burrow's Bengals? So on the MALLER scale of concern, 1 to 10, with 10 being Joshua Dobbs is your starting quarterback. Holy crap. I'm at a 3. I am at a 3 for Joe Burrow and the Bengals. So I've got carburetor, generational, and hiccups. And we'll combine all of these things together, and we are going to make a nice piece of paper that we can crumble up. Like those that bet on the Cincinnati Bengals, they crumbled up the paper, the gambling tickets that they had if they went to the old school sports book, and it wasn't all digital. So first of all, this Joe Burrow, we can say it right now. We all know the story. He sucked at a time you cannot suck, which was from the beginning to the end of this game. He didn't make it to the end of the game. He got pulled because the game was so lopsided. But Burrow was god-awful. He served up a bag of manure. Okay, he was just dreadful. And I kept flipping over to this game. I'm like, oh, at some point. Now, I had the Browns. But I thought at some point the Bengals are going to make a push here. And they're going to get back in this game. And I'm going to have to sweat it out in the fourth quarter and all that. And none of that happened. None of that happened. And this continues a pattern here for Joe Burrow, where he has been pretty bad the beginning of seasons. The Bengals as a team generally get off the first couple weeks of the season to a very slow start. However, we are only going 3 on the MALLER scale of concern for Joe Burrow. Why is that? Why are we not going higher than a 3? Sky is falling. It's falling. It's spaghetti with the chili on top right there. It's falling from the heavens in Cincinnati. But Joe Burrow, the reason I'm not going to get crazy here is because it's the resume. We've seen it. Joe Burrow, he's built differently. He's kind of like an old school car. You know, if you have a car that's over 30 years old, they tell you when you warm it up, you got to leave that thing running for 30 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes to get the engine going. And if you don't do that, you're going to have problems, especially when the weather gets cold. You got to get that thing going, and it's just the way it is. An old school car is part of the process. But Joe Burrow, if you look at his carburetor, similar to those old school cars, Joe Burrow takes him a couple of weeks to get going, get warmed up, and Burrow starts slowly, get that carburetor kind of warm and get the engine chirping and all that stuff, and then he'll be able to get the proper mix of the air and the fuel and the engine and all that. It'll be good to go. So that's what he has to do. He hadn't been able to do it. He hadn't been able to master it. And so, fortunately for him, you can suck for 2 weeks, and the season's so long now with 17 games that it doesn't really matter that much. But he regularly also stumbles against the Browns. For all the teams to struggle against the Browns, nobody struggles against Cleveland other than Joe Burrow. It's fascinating. But he will be okay. Now, we also saw Jamar Chase, who made some comments that got some attention in that rivalry between Cleveland and Cincinnati. Jamar Chase did not back down from the comments that he made leading up to this game. He referred to the Browns as elves. He talked about them being elves and said it's frustrating because I called them elves. In fact, here's the man himself, Jamar Chase here, post-game commenting on the elf commentary.
It's frustrating because I called their ass elves, and we just lost to some elves, so I'm pissed on my part. I'm pissed on that. And like I said, man, we got missed opportunities. We didn't capitalize on that shit, and we lost, so that's how we lost.
Yeah, okay. So did Jamar Chase and his elf commentary cost the Browns or cost the Bengals against the Browns? Did that happen, right? Did he inspire the Cleveland Browns to victory? Is that column on the internet somewhere, some hack sports writer writing that if it hadn't been for Jamar Chase, the Cleveland Browns would have lost this game, but they rallied around, supporting the elf. Well, if anybody wrote that, they're a dope, they're a moron, they're a Mama Luke and all that. No, I'm not buying that led in any part to the outcome of this game. I don't believe that. That's a bunch of malarkey. I've never believed that. The Browns just happened to play better. The team did not huddle up before the game and say, all right, we got to win this one for the elf. And by the way, there is a giant elf at midfield. I saw it. It's their logo. The midfield logo right there. It's an elf. That's what it is. So it's not like you lied. The Cleveland Browns have decided to embrace their old school logo. That's fine. Now, secondly, speaking of old school, there's one thing in life that was always guaranteed. That is an honest, workmanlike effort from the Pittsburgh Steelers with Mike Tomlin as coach. Until Sunday, when Brock Purdy tossed not one but two touchdowns. Christian McCaffrey, 152 yards on the ground and a touchdown. The 49ers poleaxed the Yinzers, going away 30-7. Wowzers. 30-7 was the final. What happened to Mike Tomlin's team? What happened? Now, I love a good Mike Tomlin rant. I enjoy a Mike Tomlin rant. But Pittsburgh was not ready. They were not prepared, which is very unusual when Mike Tomlin is coaching a team. And Tomlin has the whole spiel down about how we make no excuses. We look for no comfort. He gives that same rant when the Steelers lose a game they're not supposed to get blown out in. The Niners are a good team. I'm not going to say, that's Captain Obvious. The Niners are a good team. They're a legit Super Bowl threat in the NFC. But that game should not have been as lopsided there. And it was very unorthodox for a Steelers Mike Tomlin coach team. We expected more. The 49ers methodically took apart the Pittsburgh Steelers in their own stadium. It's something that you see once in a blue moon, that Pittsburgh comes out, plays like a bunch of deadbeats. And that's exactly what happened there. And Tomlin said that, he said, quote, we got kicked in the teeth, was the quote. I don't think that's strong enough by Mike Tomlin. It's strong, but I don't think it's strong enough. I think the word is generational, that this was the worst home loss in the Mike Tomlin era that goes back almost a generation in Pittsburgh. That's how bad this was. And the 49ers, and to their credit, I'll give the Niners this, that it was like an old school boxing match where the opponent has a small cut right above the eye, and you just keep punching the wound. And that's what the 49ers did. They saw a weakness in the Steelers, and they kept punching that spot, and then it became a gusher. And by the time it got under control, the game was over. Turn out the lights, the party's over. Could do nothing right. Then you had the double whammy for Pittsburgh. The double whammy. What was the double whammy? Not only did they go out in the field and get stomped out like a cigarette, but also you had Patrick Peterson say that the 49ers offense, this is in the lead up to the game, he said the 49er offense had some tell signs that he implied that the Steelers defensively had figured some things out, that they knew what they needed to slow down the 49ers. It's the way he presented it. And Peterson, appropriately enough, got burned on one of those early touchdowns for the 49ers. So if the Steelers did figure something out, and that's what the claim was, obviously it did not succeed. 391 yards, which doesn't seem like a lot, but you combine that with all the turnovers, the short field, and it's a pretty wide margin there. So you talk about that, and then you end up hitting the mute button. So you talk the talk, you don't walk the walk, you just hit the mute button. All right, final thought. Let's go to Minnesota, where Baker Mayfield gets off to a winning start, a pair of touchdowns. He was really shaky early on in this game, but then eventually the Vikings defense realized, wait a minute, we're the Viking defense. We can't be that good. And then all of a sudden, Baker starts completing passes, but a pair of touchdowns and a 1-0 start, surprise victory. Many pundits surprised that Minnesota lost at home to Tampa Bay. So let us discuss on this game, how surprised are you that the Buccaneers were able to take down the Vikings at the beautiful stadium there in downtown Minneapolis? So I was not surprised. Having watched this matchup, it kind of went the way I thought it would. I thought it would be higher scoring than it was. But nevertheless, I did pick, and it's documented on the TV show, I picked the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in this game. And mainly because I thought the point spread was too wonky. That Minnesota, with that defense they have, and you know that Kirk Cousins is going to screw something up somewhere along the way. You knew that. And even though Brian Flores is the new defensive coordinator, we think he's pretty good when he's not suing the NFL, he's got to go back to the sorcerer's workshop here because it's not working. The potion, he needs some kind of stronger potion for the Viking defense. He said, well, wait a minute here. The Vikings only allowed a grand total of 20 points, and by Viking standards, that's pretty good. And you could say, oh, sure, that's true, and the turnovers were a big part of it, but still not good enough to win the game. Not good enough to win the game. Need more. And as for Kirk Cousins, he continues to be an enigma, statistically very good, but yet there are these little glitches, these things that go haywire, the thingamajig that he can't figure out, and random hiccups. Random hiccups, 344 yards passing in this game. You saw it, you know that, couple of touchdowns. But Kirk Cousins, yet again, he had an interception. He coughed up the football twice via fumbles. So that is not exactly a winning formula for Kirk Cousins.